Hi, I'm Tim Shaw, Fender's Chief Engineer for Guitars. I'd like to talk to you today about our new CuNiFe and Cobalt Chrome guitar pickups. CuNiFe is a really interesting material. It's over 80 years old. Basically, it's an alloy of copper, nickel, and iron. About 60% copper, 20% nickel, 20% iron. And for some of its applications, it's got a little bit of other stuff thrown in there too. It's originally developed as a metal that had a bunch of uses. It was hull plating for boats. It was made in gauges and stuff like that. And if you messed with it long enough, you could make a magnet out of it. And it was at the time, the only magnet material that could be made into a screw. Later on, there's another one. We'll talk about that one a bit as well. But this was used pretty much in every speedometer, every tachometer, every altimeter. So it's worldwide, and there's tons of it around. Fast forward a little bit, the late 60s, Seth Lover quits Gibson, moves out here to California, goes to work for Fender. And relatively quickly, people say, Seth, you got that humbucking pickup. What a swell thing. Why don't you make one for us? And put Seth in a quandary because the original patent for his humbucking pickup was still in force and he couldn't infringe himself. So knowing about CuNiFe, he decided to try to make a pickup out of it and learned pretty quickly that it wasn't like Alnico or other magnets. He had to allow for the fact that it didn't have much iron in it, so a pickup that he wound with it didn't have a lot of low end. And that forced him to make the pickups bigger than a standard humbucking that he designed previously. So he ended up with what we now call the wide range pickup. So it's a bigger pickup overall, and it also happens to pick up a wider section of the string, that way if you'd like to look at it that way. So picking up a wider section of the string, you got a fuller, fat sound and a really distinctive tonality, which a lot of people liked. The problem was that, unbeknownst to everybody at Fender, CuNiFe as a material was falling out of favor with the electronics industry because speedometers, tachometers, and altimeters were all going digital. And once that happened, there was a lot smaller industrial use for it, and Fender's pickup couldn't sustain it. After we redeveloped the wide range pickup, I started to wonder what else would Seth have done if they'd left him alone and let him work on this stuff. And the first thing I turned to was the Strat pickup. And it fought back really hard. It fought back quite hard for about a year and a half. Ended up having to change the geometry of the bobbin, made a bunch of little technical decisions, and finally ended up with a set of 3 pickups that kept the musicality of Strat pickups we like, kept this sparkly top end, which never overdrove, never got harsh, but also importantly, still let us hear all the quack and all the magic from a Strat set of pickups. So I was very pleased with where we got, but it took a long time getting there. CuNiFe was the first magnet that could be made into a screw. It's not the only one. There's another alloy which was developed in the 50s, perhaps because people actually knew that CuNiFe wouldn't last forever. And that's a material called iron chromium cobalt, which is FeCrCO, if we actually write out the periodic table symbols for these things. And that's not a very pleasant sounding acronym, where CuNiFe rolls off the tongue, Alnico rolls off the tongue, Facro does not so much roll off the tongue. So in the shop, I started calling it Cobalt Chrome because at least I could pronounce it. This material is typically made in a strength about like Alnico 5. And when people couldn't get CuNiFe in years past, they would use this iron chromium cobalt alloy to hopefully duplicate the pickups that Fender had previously done. Now it sounds a lot different because magnetically it's a lot different. And I ended up working with it as well, and there are some choices we've made with the CuNiFe pickups where instead of CuNiFe, we're using this Cobalt Chrome as a magnet because it gives us a sound we want and other performance characteristics that make sense. Each of the pickup sets we're showing now has had its own sonic and technical challenges. The Telecaster set I spent a lot of time with and had some stuff with CuNiFe that I liked, but it was not really inspiring. So Ben Blanc-Dumont, our artist relations director for Nashville, and I spent a couple of days with basically a room full of Telecasters and prototype pickups, and we listened to them and ended up deciding that in a Telecaster, for the qualities we expect sonically from a Tele, CuNiFe was just a little too polite. It would have played well with others. You don't want a Telecaster to play well with others. You want attitude from a Telecaster. And the Cobalt Chrome gave us that kind of Telecaster attitude. So the Tele set is all Cobalt Chrome. Sonically, CuNiFe's got some really interesting properties. It's fairly weak, but there's a kind of a musical quality to it that we get because of the nature of the alloy. And when we hear it in a pickup, there's solid top end, but it never gets harsh. And sometimes we get a kind of a pleasant scoop in the upper mid-range as well. So just musically, there's a lot to work with. Cobalt Chrome typically is a brighter, harder sound, a lot more like Alnico 5, but it, like CuNiFe, maintains a kind of a clean upper character that doesn't get harsh until you really kind of push things too far. So each has its own purpose, and there were specific reasons in each of these pickup sets where I went with one magnet or the other, depending on the musical purpose we had to get. When I started working on a Jazzmaster set for this series, I was very, very conscious, particularly of the neck pickup and the way it sounded. And it was really, really important for me to get something that did that pickup and that position on the guitar justice It had to sound and feel like a Jazzmaster, and if we got anything else afterwards, that was going to be great. It was important to me to maintain the character of a Jazzmaster, particularly in the neck pickup position, where you've got a full, fat, kind of a glorious sound. I really do like it. And I got a CuNiFe pickup that I liked for the neck a lot. When I tried CuNiFe in the bridge position, it didn't have the swagger and the attitude that that bridge pickup needed to have. Tried the Cobalt Chrome, ended up with a pickup. It has the clarity that we need for a Jazzmaster bridge pickup without the harshness that we can sometimes have. So I'm very pleased with the way that particular set came out. I've always felt that musical instruments, particularly guitars, are tools and dreams. They have to give us the sound we want, at the volume we have to play at, and we have to want to play them. And if we don't want to play them, then they're decorative wall hangings. It really doesn't matter. I approach pickup design the same way. If I don't want to play a pickup, there's nothing in that pickup that inspires me, you're never going to hear it. And I've got boxes full of outtakes. So the CuNiFe thing for me has been really exciting. I worked at a previous company on Seth Glover's first humbucking. I've now worked at Fender on Seth's last humbucking, and I was also able to take that whole family of pickups and move them to a place Seth was never allowed to do that. And it's been a lot of fun, and it's been a great source of pride for me.